Hi everyone, Jared here. I wanted to take a moment and talk a little bit about pivot points. Those of you that receive my emails and follow me on Twitter have seen me talking quite a bit about how much I love pivot points and how great they are to trade both short-term and long-term. A few things that we will be discussing on pivot points will be two categories. Number one, what types of pivot points we have. So daily pivots, weekly pivots, and monthly pivots. Now that doesn't necessarily mean on the daily charts, weekly charts, and monthly charts. It means more specifically a daily pivot is this example right here. It's a pivot point that lasts for the day, so 24 hours. And we use it quite a bit on the 1 hour chart. A weekly pivot would be a pivot point that lasts for the entire week. We will see that quite a bit on the 4 hour charts. You can see that green line is our pivot point right there, those green bold lines. And then we're going to talk about monthly pivot points, which is this purplish line right here. Now this, again, we're not necessarily going to look at this on the monthly chart. This is a pivot point that lasts for a month. Now on the 4 hour chart we can see a month's worth of movement. You see here's our November pivot point. There's the start of it, there's the end of it, and that's only a 4 hour chart. So we're not talking crazy long term here, but we are talking some very great strong levels that look at slightly longer term setups and numbers. So those are the three types of pivot points. Now the three types of setups that we're going to be looking at on pivot points are going to be, number one, a pivot that is hit. Here's a pivot that is hit right here. Here's another pivot that has been hit. There's another pivot and another and another, and those have all been hit, both daily and weekly. Now hit pivot points don't mean too much to us. We do want to keep an eye out for them because it means that the market's been to a certain area and certain things can happen after that. But those are probably the least significant things to us. Now slightly more significant, quite a bit more significant, is a pivot where the market has been created, or where the pivot has been created, but the market has not yet touched it during the creation period. So, for example, a daily pivot point is not considered missed until the day is over. So here's an example of a missed daily pivot right here. So it was created right there, ended right there, and you can see that the market never touched it during that 24-hour period. So that right there is an example of a missed pivot, and missed pivots become very interesting to us because those can turn into some fantastic profit targets. It's almost like a missed pivot turns into a magnet for the market, and at some point, usually sooner than later, it comes back to that missed pivot. So the example here is the pivot was created and ended right here. A few more pivots were created and hit since, about 3 pivots, and then by about 3 days after this pivot was missed, the market came back down and hit that level. So if we just draw a horizontal line right there, we can see that that missed pivot has been hit, and it did again take a couple of days. So again, a hit pivot, not super interesting, but we'll keep an eye on it. A missed pivot, very interesting, and we love those ones. A pivot that has been created and just not hit yet during the period that it was created. For example, this weekly pivot right now. Here we are Tuesday. This was created at the start of this week. And it's not considered missed yet because the week isn't over. So the week would have to be over for this to be a missed pivot, but it has not yet been hit this week yet. So this becomes very interesting as a possible opportunity for trades down into this area and all kinds of different things that can happen with this pivot. So again, a hit pivot, a missed pivot, and then a pivot that just hasn't been hit yet during the period that it was created, either daily, weekly, monthly. And again, this weekly pivot is an example. The market could very easily come down and hit this weekly pivot before the week is over, and there will be opportunities to trade with that. There will also be fantastic opportunities if the week ends without this pivot being hit. So once again, we're going to look at daily, weekly, monthly pivots. We're going to look at hit pivots, missed pivots, and then pivots that just haven't been hit yet during the period that they were created. So great opportunities come from all of those, and those categories are going to be very important to know if you are looking for both short and long-term trades with pivot points. Thanks everyone, and best of luck.